What's going on, Junkie Nation? Gorgeous George and Goes catching up with one of our favorites, all-time favorites here on our existence of Tag Radio and MMA Junkie Radio. It's none other than Cub Swanson, who defeated Hakeem Dawodu this past weekend at the UFC Fight Night Vegas 78, UFC on ESPN 51, whatever you want to call it. The man got his hand raised. Congrats, Cub.
Thank you, guys. I appreciate it.
A few days have gone by now. I'm sure you've rewatched the fight. And do you still kind of share the same opinion that, maybe the other guy should have won? Or do you, as it said in that, hey, the call was right?
All right. I
It
watched the
is.
fight, and yeah, I thought it was very close, but I mean, I I definitely feel like I won. First and third round, um, second round I'd give to him just because of basically controlling me, but he really didn't do any damage from there. I actually was letting him control me because um, I didn't think that anything he was doing was hurting me, and I felt like he was spending more energy than I was, so I was kind of letting him do that. But in the moment, uh, I thought that I lost the first just because I was disappointed in what I had done in myself, and then I thought I lost the second. So in my mind, going into the third, I was like, I need to finish him.
Do you not remember at that time blasting them with the feint, and then the big overhand right? It was kind of early in the first round. Did you kind of remember that? Does it start to get foggy as the fight goes
No,
on?
yeah, I remembered that. I was kind of disappointed that I didn't throw that more. That was kind of the game plan, was to kind of get him back more on his heels.
Hmm.
But yeah, I thought that double jab right worked perfectly, and I don't know why I didn't do more of it.
I thought it won you the first round, honestly, because the first round, see, on fight night, I thought you won 1 and 3. Now, I was nervous that the judges could say 28-29, or sorry, 29-28 Dawadu, right? So I thought that could happen because I knew the rounds are close, but I thought you won rounds 1 and 3. And then when Goes and I rewatched it, I thought that punch actually made the difference because the rest of the time, though he did make up some ground, like if you're using the pendulum, kind of like a clock, you're leaning this way or that way, though he did make up some ground, um, you still had answers. So you still had strikes as well. But
Yeah,
the criteria is very clear on damage and offense. And in that round, I thought it was the most damaging round, with the rest kind of nullifying itself, I guess.
yeah, yeah, and then my nose started bleeding at in the first round.
Hmm.
One shot that he caught me with was right at the bridge of my nose, and then it just started flowing. So I remember thinking that was going to make the judges think that I lost the round as well.
Yeah. Um, the broadcasters, I guess, kind of always gave, not always, sorry, kind of gave us that feeling as well that it could be 0-2 going in to round 3. And so by the time the decision was read, um, I understood why people were like, "Oh my god, robbery," when it really wasn't. You know what I mean? But the
Yeah,
broadcasters gave this indication like, "Hey man, if this guy doesn't finish, he's going to lose. He's down 0-2." Everything that just makes you believe that basically you need the finish. And when you didn't get the finish, including getting that takedown in round 3, it was almost like "Oh, what is he doing?" when you should maybe going for the finish with your hands. Um but what do you think of that? Like, did you feel like it was unfair, or did you understand what they're saying? I'm talking, I guess, specifically about DC with the 0-2 feeling, and then Brendan at the end, kind of giving that feeling that the right guy just didn't win, but we move on to the next fight. I don't know if you caught that.
no, I didn't pay attention to that. Ultimately, I've seen some of the comments, and I'm not really that worried about it
Okay.
because my whole career, I don't think I've ever got a close decision go my direction.
Hmm.
So yeah, I just was like, whatever, man. I This was such a tough camp for me mentally to be able to. to get in it, to feel confident. I was just really dealing with a lot of doubt for myself in general. So that was another reason why I kind of was clapping for him. I had a really hard time visualizing me winning. I
Mhm.
just kept honestly feeling like I wasn't going to, and I was struggling with that all camp. So to actually get the win, and then the people closest to me that their opinion matters. They all thought that I won 1 and 3. So that's all that mattered to me.
I should have thrown that in there. Yeah, you're right. The little clap from you as well kind of didn't help matters, I guess. But it's done. You did win. Congrats. Obviously, he was tough. Man, dude, let me tell you something. I should be stressing this even more. It was really a fun fight to watch. And that's why when I texted you, like, hey, we'd love to have you on to talk about the fight, one of the questions I slipped in there was your hands. I mean, you were throwing with bad intentions. And if Hakeem Dawodu is in any way interested in what I have to say, I think if he would have done a little bit more of that, which it looks like anything he throws is heavy artillery, but it seemed like he just wasn't like fully extending on a lot of things, or maybe being more active. Maybe things go his way, but man, you were throwing some hard punches. Your hands survived. I mean, and it really did look like you had a blast out there. Forgetting about the money, forgetting about the win and loss. I had fun watching it because it looked like you had fun doing it.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, backstage was crazy. I was kind of having a mix of emotions. I just wanted so bad to have a good performance. Um, I got a little choked up backstage, and I was just like, I just wanted to go out there and have fun and be in the moment and not have a bad experience, because sometimes that happens. And so when I started to really catch my flow backstage, I just kept reminding myself to go out there and enjoy the moment, but be fast and loose. And that's what all I was thinking about. And so when Joe Martinez was announcing me, I was kind of soaking that in, um, because you never know. I don't know when my last fight is going to be. So I was trying to soak that in, and then once I got into the fight, I really felt on, and then I landed some good stuff, and then he surprised me with some of his speed, and so that kind of made me reevaluate and kind of refocus, and then he started catching some steam in the second round, and then I was able to kind of refocus after the second, going into the third, and try to have some fun. And I really feel like if I wouldn't have done that, I wouldn't have been able to secure that third round. And so I was pretty proud of that, to be able to rally back and be able to have some fun in there. And I saw my kids, and I was like, oh man, all right, I'm really having fun at this point.
Um, Cub, so I've kind of heard you say it before that there were certain circumstances leading into this fight that just felt different for you. What does that mean going forward? Are they things that you've identified that you feel like, okay, this is how I can fix that? Or I think you might have alluded to this before. You said you might have just felt a little bit slower, like maybe father time caught up to you. Those are things that can't really change too much. Can you maybe identify what this means going forward in your career?
I mean, honestly, just this is the first time I ever felt that I wasn't, like, technically I feel the best version of myself, but athletically I started, this is the first time I noticed a small decline. And I just, as someone who's been measuring myself against my last performance for years and years and years, it was just hard to deal with, and to be like, man, should I still be doing this? Is this the right move? I'm not a young kid, trying to lay it all on the line anymore. I got a family. I have stuff. Is this important enough? And yeah, I was just, these are normal human emotions that we deal with, that we don't usually talk about, but it was real, and it was a scary one for me. I told all my coaches, my cornermen, my close training partners what I was dealing with, just so that I was like, look, if you see me acting a little different this camp, then just know this is what I'm dealing with. I'm gonna get through it, but just this is it is what it is.
I hope that's something that you never lose. I know that's very difficult for some fighters, but you always kind of keep everything real and you speak from your heart, even in those moments where it can be very, very tough. I mean, you just had a fight and people are drilling you with questions, and then afterwards, like that's very difficult to do. But I don't know if you realize this, but the effect that it has on other people watching you do that, I think gives a lot of people confidence and pride, and it kind of helps humanize our sport a little bit. So I just off to the side, I hope you do keep that in you and never let that go away. We really all do appreciate that. And with that said, I want to ask you another question. You had mentioned the kids. You thought they were going to kind of be in the back, but they ended up being pretty close. But it all worked out, right?
Yeah,
Is
yeah.
that something where going forward, hey, let's have them up in front, or let's go back to plan A, keep them in the back?
Well, and see, so that was the tricky thing is I wanted them to be there because I just wanted to see them right away after, because I spent time away from them this camp, and seeing my kids and my family makes everything okay again. So I knew that right after the fight, I wanted them to be close by, but I didn't want them cage side. I didn't want them right there because, like I said, it was very difficult for me not to think that I was going to lose. I was struggling with that, and so it made me even more nervous, thinking, okay, well, if I get beat up in there, that it is what it is. But do I want to get beat up with my kids just right there, maybe crying? Like that just didn't that wasn't making it any easier. But it just so happened that they ended up sitting up close, and it was out of my mind. And I actually worked out because I saw them at a great moment and right when I was having fun, and it was just like, hey, all right, they're right here, and I'm good. Everything's fine. So, like I said after the fight, I if I'm taking my fear out of the equation, I want them to be able to see. I don't want to hide things from them. I think it's an important lesson that losing and winning and losing is a part of life and is what it is.
Hey, Cub, just to be specific here, did you mean in the back, out of the arena itself, or just like maybe 10th row? I mean, we're not talking about Cowboy Stadium here. The Apex is pretty small, so I don't. Where was the confusion? You didn't even want them in the actual arena itself, like you wanted them in the locker room, or how did
Yeah,
that happen? How did that play out? Was that Kenda's call at the end or something like that?
no. So there's like a couple areas. There's like a little kitchen. There's a waiting area where they have TVs and you can still watch the fights. And so I kind of figured that, Kenda has a credential, so I thought that she would have them just kind of waiting in the waiting area, not in the arena. Um, and so, but uh, they kind of were like, no, we have these seats for you, and she was just kind of like nervous about it. She knew how I was feeling, so she was was feeling trying to be respectful of me and everything. But that's where they ended up sitting, and like I said, it all worked out. But
Yeah.
yeah, it's crazy.
Okay. So yeah, executive decision, but it worked out. Man, I'm telling you, seeing them was one of the things that made my weekend. They were all so cute and grown up, and they had the smile on their face, and so did she. So even though that wasn't the initial plan, you're right, it did work out. That was cool.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
thank you. It made it special for me as well.
Hmm.
Hey, Cub. So speaking of special things, whenever we interview you, it kind of brings us back down to earth for a little bit because you were literally like maybe our third interview ever on the show. I know you were one of our first in studio interviews, and I'm sure if we went back to that day, George and I wouldn't think we'd still be around here, and maybe you throughout your career might have thought, "Hey, I might have had a couple fights and then find something else to do." But we're all here, right? And some of the things that's difficult about our show and this new audience of mixed martial arts fans is trying to explain the past a little bit. I
Mhm.
want you to kind of look back at a time in your life in the WEC era. We could talk about it all day, but if you weren't there, it's just kind of hard to understand. Can you maybe pick one thing that you could point to that separates the WEC from everything else, where you got to say like, look, man, you just kind of had to be there, but this is the one thing that the WEC brought that just didn't really happen anywhere else.
I think it was the pride that we all fought with, and that kind of was really cool because the UFC was already doing its thing, and it was the same company, but it was the lighter weight classes, so it was an opportunity. Like if it wasn't for the WC, there probably wouldn't be women in the UFC, and I don't think the lower weight classes would have ever done well. Um, so I just remember being backstage in the fighter meetings, because now the fighter meetings are like, hey, don't cuss out there, don't jump on the cage. There's bonuses, it's like really simple. But back then, Dana and Sean would be talking to us backstage. I remember specifically certain times they're like, look, we have these executive producers from this TV station coming, and it's really important that you guys go out there and you just do what you do. And everybody left that like fighter meeting after weigh-ins like feeling, man, we all have to go out there and make this fight card special. And we did that every time. So I felt like we had a lot of pride in how hard we were fighting and how entertaining we were trying to be. And yeah, I haven't felt that since, just basically the company saying, hey man, we need you guys to go out there and just, put on great performance.
Yeah, that's a great answer. Let me ask you this. So going forward, I feel like Cub Swanson's done so much in his career. You're a Hall of Famer that you're not the guy that they call and tell you, what do you think of this? I feel like you're the guy that could say, this is what I want. So my question to you is, what does Cub Swanson want going forward?
Well, I think at this point, the only thing that would really excite me would be a fight in Palm Springs. And, there's probably only a couple fights that I'd even want. I know one that the fans would want would be another fight with Duho Choi. But yeah, that fight in Palm Springs would be pretty wild. Uh, Other than that, I don't know, too many other fights that really are going to excite me and motivate me to train hard at this point.
You and I chatted about this in Costa Mesa a few months back. Did you say the arena's done or is being built? I can't remember.
Oh, it's done. I
Okay.
already went to a hockey game there. It's the Coachella Valley Firebirds.
Hmm.
Um, it's the hockey team, and yeah, I think they broke the record for highest average attendance in a season.
Oh
Uh,
yeah.
Nice.
so yeah, they're the
You know
Coachella.
its attendance?
Huh?
Do you know what the attendance is there?
I believe it's just under 10,000 for a hockey game, but I
Okay.
think like 11,000 if you have people on the floor.
Right. All right. So it's definitely doable for sure.
For a fight night, I
Exactly.
no problem. Yeah,
And the way you phrased your answer, if that doesn't happen, this could have been your last fight then?
it's possible.
Mm.
I got a little bit of I got some injuries that I need to address that I'm going to real soon here. I mean, honestly, I've had this cyst on my spine that's been causing me quite a bit of pain
Yeah.
uh, that I've been dealing with, and so I think I need to get that removed.
Well,
Would you feel like satisfied if this one was it? Or does Palm Springs, like, is that an itch that needs to be scratched, or anything else that you're holding close to yourself that matters to you?
I think I'd like to have one more big one, just be able to fight in front of a crowd. I haven't done that since I fought Kron in Tampa. Uh, it's kind of crazy. Um, but yeah, I kept saying that my birthday's coming up in a few months, and I'm going to talk with my family and evaluate things. But yeah, I need to get healthy and see how I feel after.
Hmm. I imagine winning helped, right? Because I guess a brutal loss would have accelerated this conversation, or does everything still like, or did you know that coming out of that night there was still the Palm Springs thing and everything else? Like, what did it all depend on different things that happened that particular night?
Um, I'd say it's probably safe to say if I would have lost, I probably would have been done.
Wow, that's
Uh,
crazy, man. I had to do a double take, Cub, when I saw that you're 39, going on 40 later this year. For some
mhm.
reason, I had you pegged more in my head, like 36 ish or something like
Yeah.
that.
You
But
you got
yeah,
you
that
got to think. You know what people say to me? Like I run into fans here and there, and I get noticed, and the fans are always cool. But you know what? 9 out of 10 people tell me when I see them in the streets,
Hmm.
"You retired, right?"
Really?
hmm.
It gets like I want to be like, "I get it. All right." Like it it's
Well,
just kind of crazy that it makes me like, man, all right, am I tripping? Am I overstaying my welcome?
No.
I mean, okay, in your last six fights, you've won four and lost two, or you can say you've won two of your last three. You're not fighting tomato cans by no stretch of the imagination. I mean, these are some killers out there and different types of specialists,
Mm,
that you've beaten. But what I still can't get out of my head is how exciting the fight was. And if your body can hold up, man, those fights deliver. Like, even if you would have lost, I still would have told you to your face. I would have went, bro, that's one of the funnest fights, Cub Swanson fights that I've seen, because it looked like every tool that you've ever learned, you threw or thought about throwing, because obviously you probably know 1,000 techniques. You can't do 1,000 techniques in a
yeah,
fight, but it was crazy, man. It was awesome. Um, so yeah, I mean, but yeah, it's your brain, it's your family, it's your
yeah,
body, it's your spine. I don't know how you wake up in the morning. I mean, it may take you 10 minutes to get out of bed. Who knows?
yeah. I mean, it that's the biggest thing is I keep myself training with a bunch of 20-year-olds that are hungry, and I'm still performing in the gym. It's just that when I get home, uh, it hurts a little bit more. It takes me a little
Mhm.
bit longer to walk up and down the stairs on certain days, on my hardest days. But yeah, I just know that my kids are getting at the fun age of doing sports, and I just don't want to be struggling to play sports with them. So um, you know, like I said, I'm gonna evaluate things, and if it excites me, I'll be into it. If not, then I'm not too worried about it.
Well, I have a suggestion. Can I be your manager for the next 30 seconds?
Unofficially.
Unofficially. All right. Here's the Cub Swanson retirement plan. If the UFC never goes to Palm Springs, okay, rematch Jose Aldo in boxing in Palm Springs.
I mean, I would love to do that. I watched most of his boxing matches so far, and yeah, I think we would match up well. I think people would be surprised at my actual boxing skills because you 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 have to spar and fight a lot different. And I've been doing that for 15 years, and people really haven't got to see me do it. But um, yeah, and like George, like you were saying with the last fight with Hakeem, um, he was making me miss, and he was giving me a tough time. But had I been landing more, I probably would have showed even more and had done more stuff. But he was keeping me honest because he wasn't easy to land clean on.
I left
Yeah,
one part out.
go ahead, guys.
Tim- Timothy Bradley has to be involved in your corner somehow. I think that would
Yeah,
be fun.
well, if we get to fight in Palm Springs, I was planning on making sure that he came. Like, come
That'd be
on,
dope.
you gotta come support.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, well, there was another thing I was gonna say. Oh, no, I know two things I want to say. Hakeem Dawodu is going to get better because of this fight. I think he's going to realize
Mhm.
that those moments where he was tentative and let you lead the dance may have cost him. I think he's going to get better, and this is just going to be a learning fight for him. That's one thing, and it came at the, a veteran taught him that lesson a little bit. It had nothing to do with the judges. I thought the judges scored it correctly. And like I say, I was even open to 29-28. It could have been the other guy. Hell, Cub, honestly, round 2 was close too. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? And there's some
I heard
angles
him.
where
I
when
heard
you're
him.
looking, you're like, who got the best? When you guys did the phone booth fighting, some
Yeah,
hook, you can't tell if like maybe a forearm blocked something or maybe
yeah,
something wasn't as effective. Like I don't know. Like I had to look and rewind and go, wait, what just landed or whatever. But obviously, in a live fight, there's no luxury to that. You got panels. You got the judge. You see some judges going like this because you may be blocking them from seeing what you just did to him. Maybe it landed, maybe it didn't. You know what I mean?
yeah,
It's a trip, man. It's really judging is a trip, but I think they have the best seat in the house, and you know,
yeah. Well, my wife, obviously she's partial, but she was like, I think he lost because he needs you in the cup twice. He punched you after the bell, and then when he did have you against the fence, he didn't do anything. He like his opportunity of his control time, he didn't. He just maintained. He didn't try to go for a finish. And so I was like, yeah, I could see that as well. I definitely landed the bigger shots, and I don't think I never got rocked. The only thing that ever buckled me was the one calf kick. Hurt me pretty good.
did you talk to him afterwards?
No, we kind of talked in the cage, like you know, a little banter. It was funny, but I would have liked to have seen him after, but I ended up not going back to the hotel. I had Airbnb with my family, and
Mm-hmm.
so I never got to run into him. I would have liked to have shaken his hand and told him I appreciate the fight.
Mm. The last thing that I did want to say was there may have been a few times when I did say, I hope you don't hold this against me, but I did say, man, get your hands up. And the only problem is I probably ended it with fool. Get your hands up, fool, or whatever. Boy, are you comfortable with your hands low? But man, as a Swanson fan, you got me wincing, like, you know what I mean? Because they're 4-ounce gloves and it's not just hands, and I know you're comfortable because you've done so much work with Diaz back in the day. You got, you can slip
Yeah,
punches and all that. You see it coming, but it's just all these guys that maybe slip something and then all of a sudden a shin comes behind it. You know what I mean?
yeah,
But yeah, I must have said it at least 20 times. Get the hands up. Yeah, and a few fools in there, maybe a jackass. I don't know. But I'm telling you, man, it was so fun. I was on the edge of my seat, and both of you guys brought it. I wish you guys would have got fight of the night.
I know.
That bugs
I
me, but
I was a little disappointed. I'm like, man, I was like, I could have used the extra money too, and I'm sure Hakeem would have appreciated it.
Mhm.
But yeah, but as long as the fans were happy, can't complain.
yeah. All right, man. Well, we took up a lot of time this morning, but we covered a lot, and it's always fun with you. So, congrats on the fight. If this is it, hey, nice one to go out on. Not just because you got your hand raised, but because it looked like you were having fun. And you guys, I mean, you guys honestly went at it, man. There was a lot of violence in that cage. I just thought of something too. Ghost said something about WC. What was special about it? The blue canvas, and you guys had more of a cozy cage than the UFC, the big octagon at the time that they still use, but they used more often then. And you guys had closer quarters, endless cardio, and just incredible feats, athletic feats, because the smaller weight class guys can do stuff like that, including the Showtime kick. You know what I mean? But
Yeah,
oh man, there's not many of you left. I think what you, Cruz, DJ, who still fights over
hmm
at one championship, and I can't think of too many more that are still left.
yeah. I don't think there is any.
Poirier fought in WC. Yeah,
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
he may have
yeah,
had one or two in there.
yeah.
So it's
I thought
it's
I
winding
thought
down.
Max did too, but he debuted. in the UFC right when we
Against
moved over.
Poirier, I think,
Yeah,
actually.
yeah.
I think Poirier submitted him at the Mandalay Bay, if I'm not
Yeah,
mistaken.
but it was right when we transitioned over, and I thought it was in the WC, but yeah.
You know what? Nate Diaz doesn't seem to be done yet, and I think he's got WEC ties as well. So yeah, we're running low. But in the UFC, I think it's just you and Dominic. I think Nate will be back. DJ, like I say, still doing his thing. But that chapter is almost close too.
Yeah, it's crazy.
For sure.
And
All right, bro.
I
Go
always thought that it was like half and half with my time in the WC and UFC. But yeah, it was only
No.
4.5 years in the WC and spent like 12 years in the UFC. I was like, holy crap.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. All right, bro. Well, listen,
All right.
thanks again. We'll talk soon, I'm sure. Or whatever you decide. Like I say, it's been a great career. And I hope there is the next one and it is in Palm Springs. But whatever's clever, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, hopefully it happens. And I appreciate you guys. Thank you.